Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us today for this discussion on the key takeaways from the State of SupTech Report 2024. My name is Simone Di Castri. I'm the CEO of Digital Transformation Solutions and co-director and co-founder of the Cambridge SupTech Lab. Before we dive into the takeaways of this year's report, I want to express my deep appreciation to all the authorities that participated in the 2024 survey and the many partners who collaborated with us in gathering insights from agencies around the world, and also in drafting case studies that bring depth and real-world perspective into this year's survey report. I want to take a moment also to acknowledge and thank my co-authors, Maria Elisa Baraza, the Insights Manager at DTS, Digital Transformation Solutions, who is with us today for this session, Samir Kuan, Calliope Lietziu, Lara Sosa Faria, and Matt Grasser. Today, we're also honored to be joined by two distinguished guests who will share their reflections on the findings. Vijay Singh Shekhawat, who is the Chief General Manager at the Reserve Bank of India. Thank you for joining us, Vijay. It's always a pleasure to have these conversations with you. And Lucero Valderrama, who is the Principal Risk and Analytics Data Analyst at the Superintendencia de Banca, Seguros, and AFP of Peru, and also one of the 12 Global Fellows in the Cambridge SupTech Lab Innovation Leaders Residency 2025. Lucero, it's also a great pleasure to have you, and looking forward to hearing your reflection as Peru. The Superintendence of Peru is doing some very important work on SupTech and the strategies related to the innovation of the agency. So throughout the session, please feel free to drop your questions or comments into the chat, and we'll do our very best to address them during the hour that we are spending together. So with this, let's get started. Maria Elisa, over to you.
Thank you, Simone. Welcome again, everyone, to this session. My name is Maria Elisa Baraza, Insights Manager at the Digital Transformation Solutions, and I'm excited to share with you the insights from the State of SupTech Report 2024, which is the most comprehensive data set on supervisory technology to date. So over the 3 years, we've gathered insights from 228 financial authorities across 144 countries. In 2024 alone, 139 financial authorities from 100 countries participated in the survey alongside 23 SupTech solution providers. So from the sample size, the scope is indeed truly global, with 67% of respondents representing emerging and developing economies, and 33% are representing advanced economies, with also lower middle income countries forming the largest group at 36%. So nearly half of all respondents, about 48%, were central banks, and 19% represented securities and capital markets authorities, and another 32% came from other financial regulatory bodies. So the next slide, please. So today we'll examine the state of SupTech through 3 key dimensions. So first, the maturity and institutionalization, where we're going to focus on how SupTech is moving from experimentation to becoming embedded in core operations. The second one is the strategy, governance, and execution, where we're going to examine the frameworks authorities are putting in place to guide SupTech adoption, to oversee its deployment, and also to translate plans into operational reality. And finally, we're going to look at AI, data, and digital readiness, where we look at the foundational capabilities that determine whether authorities can successfully implement and sustain SupTech solutions. So let's explore each of these in turn. So onto maturity and institutionalization. So we are witnessing a significant milestone in supervisory technology, and SupTech is actually crossing the threshold from experimentation to institutionalization. So this means that SupTech is no longer just confined to pilot projects. It's now being embedded into core supervisory operations and also institutional strategies. So authorities are actually shifting from single point solutions to broader suites of products that integrate across their supervisory functions. So, and this shift is actually clearly visible in data collection and risk analytics. So, and then SupTech adoption, we see that SupTech adoption is also on a clear upward trajectory. And our data shows a significant increase in the number of financial authorities with one or more SupTech applications operating, considering the 2G to 4G generation applications, which we're going to look at later. So when we combine the State of SupTech surveys insights with the data from our SupTech marketplace, the total we see rises to an impressive 171 financial authorities. And this trend clearly indicates the growing importance and the integration of SupTech into financial supervision worldwide. So, and in the next slide, we see that most agencies have actually more than one application live, and nearly 30% of the respondents report having between 2 to 5, and over 22% are operating more than 5 SupTech applications. And so SupTech is actually increasingly being adopted across different functional domains, as you can see. So financial authorities are broadening their focus just beyond the traditional dominant areas of prudential supervision, consumer protection, and also anti-money laundering, which remain the top 3 objectives driving the adoption of SupTech solutions for the 3rd consecutive year. And increasing interest is evident also across several emerging domains, such as cyber risk supervision and climate/ESG risk supervision, which reflects a strategic pivot to address evolving risks and new mandates from central banks and other agencies. Yes, so SupTech is actually gaining recognition, and it's being widely perceived as an enabler of more effective financial supervision. So internal metrics show performance gains across risk detection, reporting, and also conduct supervision. So however, effectiveness is currently tracked internally with no global key performance indicators. So this highlights 2 critical gaps. First, the need for shared benchmarking and indicators across jurisdiction, and second, the importance of developing outcome-oriented indicators, not just output-based metrics. So the challenge is just moving from isolated success stories to standardized measurement frameworks that demonstrate the real supervisory impact. Additionally, it is important to measure not only outputs such as increased number of examinations, but also outcomes such as, for example, better financial firms, compliance, and increased financial consumers' trust. So the State of SupTech Survey 2024 has confirmed that authorities increasingly see SupTech solutions as delivering meaningful impact across both internal and also external supervisory functions. So a significant 68% of the financial authorities report that SupTech applications are very effective in addressing supervisory challenges. So when including those rating them as moderately effective, then this figure actually rises to over 90%. However, the degree and the nature of effectiveness vary very significantly depending on the area of applications. And we see that the greatest gains reported in areas related to risk detection, data integration, and also operational efficiency. Across the different regions, the perceived effectiveness really varies, and often it's influenced by the maturity of their digital ecosystems. authorities in emerging markets and developing economies, they often report more substantial positive outcomes, potentially because SupTech replaces previously manual or fragmented processes, leading to more dramatic efficiency gains. So I'll pass it over to Simone to continue with the discussion.
Thank you so much, Maria-Lisa, and I would like to engage Vijay at this point for sharing with us some reflections. It's great to see the global uptake of SupTech and also these signals that there is an impact. The financial authorities are seeing a positive impact when they take this journey, start implementing, adopting the new solutions. Vijay, please, over to you to share some first round of feedback and reflections of what Maria-Lisa just presented and your experience leading this work at the Reserve Bank of India.
Thank you, Simone. So it's very heartening to see that we are not alone. Everybody seems to be kind of working their way around all the buzz and flash which has been there for machine learning and AI solutions, and trying to figure out where does this new technology fit into the supervisory processes. In Reserve Bank, we started our journey a couple of years ago, and like everybody else, I guess, we first looked at data. We looked at existing models, and we tried to figure out whether we can straight away take quite evolved technologies like the natural language processing models and straight away apply them to supervisory processes or develop use case around those models. And then we found that they required a lot of fine tuning. So we had to then go back to the drawing board, look at the data again, and then try and build small language models, look at supervised algorithms so that we can get more refined outputs. So the journey has been more like a trial and error process. And I think the data itself suggests that almost everybody has kind of realized that the size of the data is something that is beyond ordinary computing power and regular statistical methodologies. So they need to expand the techniques beyond the standard statistical techniques. That's one thing that everybody has realized, just as we have. The second thing which everybody has kind of zeroed on is that we need to really work on improving the quality of the data. And so therefore, in the iterations that followed, I'm sure a lot of our colleagues here would have grappled with how to get good quality data, how to get it in time, how to get it in dimensions which will be useful for making predictions, building strategies. So that's something I think everybody else is also looking at very carefully. And I think the third part is perhaps, which is not very evident here, but I guess it does come out later on the slides, is the underlying technology platforms, the cloud compute, all the infrastructure which is required for running these models, which was earlier considered traditional IT infrastructure. That leveraging of that infrastructure, that challenge, I think, is somewhere hidden in the messages in terms of adoption. The challenges in adoption, I think that's somewhere hidden. But I think slowly we are all trying to reach one place, which is using these new technologies, these SupTech tools, to support decision making, and not just as facilitators, workflow automation, not just robotic processes, but actually creating some kind of thresholds, metrics, and automating those through some kind of agents, so that we get decisions on which we can rely on, which are backed by data, and data which we cannot put in a spreadsheet or which we cannot use standard statistics to analyze. That's my initial impression, and looking at the way everybody around the globe is positioning themselves, I think we appear to be on the right track also.
Thank you so much, Vijay. I really appreciated that you highlighted the importance not only to automate processes, but for that automation to really serve better decision making, whether it's in terms of insights for regulation and policy, but also how to organize really risk-based supervision, where to deploy the capabilities in terms of examination. So it is really critical. And I would like to invite everybody here also in the chat, if you want to share some of your reflections or evidence that you have in terms of impact of SupTech solutions within your agencies, please go ahead. I think we are here to learn from each other also beyond the insights that we have from the report. We'll now move to the second tranche of the presentation, which focus on the strategy, governance, and execution. So our analysis shows a strong correlation between strategic planning and SupTech adoption, with the agencies with live strategies that are clearly leading in SupTech deployment and report fewer challenges than those that don't have the strategies in place. So over half of the respondents have SupTech, data governance, or digital transformation strategies, and consistently report higher deployment of SupTech applications. To the next slide, please. While we see also the value of early stage experimentations, we don't want to undermine that. We do warn in the report that the sequence of strategization versus early implementation is still not clear. And we do have anecdotal evidence where we see the importance of running some prototype, have some initial deployments in order to really understand how this wave of innovation works, what are the challenges that a strategy needs to help address. But then what we see, it's really through this adoption that there is an higher impact on the operationalization of the frameworks. So half of the respondents do have at least one of these three strategies already in place, and 60% have one of these strategies in development. In the report, you will find also some details about like how many of these 60% that are developing new strategies are to complement the existing ones, or are starting the strategic work right now. And across all the strategies, also interesting to see that there is a balance between the adoption of digital transformation, governance, and SupTech strategies, with the sequencing not being clear yet. And that's something that we are going to understand through the 2025 report. So what strategy comes first, and how it's really, what is the roadmap to go from strategic work into operationalization of SupTech. So the slide that we see right now provides a more granular view on the strategic framework adoption, with approximately 17% of financial authorities having implemented already all three strategic frameworks: SupTech, digital transformation, and data governance. And another 17% having adopted already two strategies, with only 18% have only one, which is most commonly the data governance strategy. And then on the chart on the right side, you really start to see some of this evidence about how about this correlation between having a strategy and being able to increasingly implement additional SupTech applications. What we see is that an agency that is at least one of these strategies 4 times more likely to have a live SupTech adoption, and even more than one. In the next slides, we start to see some details around the change management dimensions of SupTech, which are incredibly important. Like, we continue to see, like, SupTech is not only about deploying technologies. There is so much that needs to be done within an agency to make sure that the applications are, for example, designed based on the need of users, of the supervisors, as well as also to have the capabilities to leverage all the new data, for example, that are coming in, and the need for expertise to maintain these applications. So we do hear from the respondents of the survey that there are resistance to changes in the various level of the organizations. Mostly not from the leadership. The leadership seems to be the driving SupTech adoption and modernization, but sometimes the examiners or the supervisors themselves still are resistant to adoption of these new technologies. Also challenges regarding legacy processes and some of the gaps that are still to be, in terms of skills, that need to be found by the agencies through recruitment or through training. Other constraints that are evident regard the budget and the challenges of procurement. And procurement is still mentioned as the main challenge by the solution providers, by the vendors that participated in the industry survey in terms of being able to engage with public agencies. And we also see new leadership roles, new roles that are emerging across the organizations, again, to be able to have the capabilities to really go live, maintain, and harness the data and insights coming from these new applications. So despite the progress in strategic planning, financial authorities do face persistent challenges in terms of adopting these SupTech technologies. And most of this is related to lack of staff with data analytics skills, IT skills. They remain the top concerns of the agencies. And also data reporting, data quality issues remain a major challenge. And we will see later this is particularly noticeable when we talk about the deployment of AI solutions. So going to the next slides, there is a lot of number, but like the insights really from this slide is that we do see a correlation not only in terms of adoption and strategies and adoption of solutions, but also the fact that the more the agencies are adopting strategies, the more they're reporting fewer challenges. So strategies really give that institutional cohesiveness and coherence and a roadmap to be able to face some of the challenges and lower the impact of these challenges on SupTech adoption. And as we were saying before, like 76% of the respondents are flagging and they are creating new roles to be able to harness SupTech and implement their digital transformation plans. And this goes from change management expert to digitalization officers, head of SupTech, people that are both executives and experts in terms of data management, data governance, and building and implementing these solutions. So it's, I think, an important data, this, because we have been mentioning for years, like that there is, of course, a competition to be able to acquire these new talents and to create these new roles. And we see that these gaps are being fulfilled by the agencies in various ways. In terms of like the operationalization models, we've been saying for quite some time as well as a community that the build and buy was probably a false dichotomy. And I think we have evidence of this, seeing that most agencies are taking this blended approach where there is a component of buy, a component of build, which sometimes means having a development shop coming to support the deployment of the solutions versus the vendor from where to buy the solution themselves. And also the fact that the agencies are increasingly creating data teams and expanding them, not only relying on external vendors, which, however, are still the counterpart and the partner on this journey for 77% of the respondents. So in terms of the distribution of the data science models, we see that there is definitely some of the hybrid models, some like the most advanced agencies are adopting probably an hybrid hub and spoke model in terms of organization of these capabilities within the agencies. And still, like many respondents, particularly 44% of the respondents in emerging market and developing economies, still prefer decentralized models. So with the dedicated roles that are sitting within the different supervisory units. So we see some changing in the year after year analysis regarding these approaches. And in terms of operationalization of the strategies, we also see not only the creation of the new data science capabilities with some differences between emerging and advanced economies, but also in terms of really how the different departments are taking a role. That's the next slide, please, in the SupTech journey. So IT departments are, of course, involved, but also in many cases there are in-house consultants, including specialized staff in areas like analytics or project management. And many agencies, as we say before, like still and increasingly probably purchase software from vendors and collaborate with vendors or development shops in the creation of the solutions. So there is definitely an increased mix in terms of relying on internal resources, which are going through an upgrade through upskilling courses, trainings, and also through the hiring of new capabilities, and the partnership and collaboration with technology firms. In terms of the specific data science capabilities, the most common areas for capacity building are related to data science, including programming languages, cloud computing, business intelligence, data warehousing, which are flagged by 52% of the respondents, with some of the foundational skills being the strategic base really for in terms of data analytics. I think that this is very important because to me, there are some insights that we capture from the survey, which point in the direction that, yes, artificial intelligence methodologies, whether are machine learning models or others, large language models, it's an area where there are investment, and there is a balance of the AI hype with the need to really create capabilities for readiness. So still, like, for example, the fact that there is high demand for people skilled in Python, in R, like it's super important because of the reliance on this expertise to be able to really deploy some of the solutions that are at the base for then deploy artificial intelligence solutions. And also, we see a quite significant investment and demand in terms of resources that are needed and demanded in order to deploy cloud computing, which is one of the key technologies that we will see in the next round of slides in the upgrade of the technology solutions for the deployment of SupTech. So I want to take for a moment a break before we go into the AI data and digital readiness. And I want to turn again to Vijay and also to Lucero. Lucero, I hope you were able to join us. But asking Vijay and Lucero to share some of their lessons and experiences in terms of approaching SupTech and digital transformation from a strategic point of view, and then operationalizing these strategies in terms of both governance and execution into roadmaps, to taking them to live deployments. Lucero, if you are there with us, welcome to the session. And Vijay, maybe I'll start with you if you want to share some of the work of RBIs and some of your reflection regarding this data as well.
Yes. So it was very interesting to see that there's a clear difference between those who have a strategy and their progression in the journey to adopt SupTech, and those who are not having a clear strategy for even a single model. And the differential was very clear. And what we did in Reserve Bank, and thanks to the vision of our leaders, the governor and the board, they decided to have a clear strategy. They decided to allocate manpower. They decided on the use cases that we would prioritize. They decided what kind of skill sets would be required there, how we would get those skill sets. They provided those particular skill sets, and they gave us specific agenda for every quarter so that we could produce those results. And they continuously align the administrative structures within the supervisory processes to absorb the output which is coming from these new models. So that strategy was very clear in the mind of the Board for Financial Supervision and the senior management in Reserve Bank, and they had that in black and white, and so it helped us shape our initiatives so that we could move from one use case to the other and keep moving ahead. Having said that, we did face some of the challenges that other central banks, majority of them, are facing. For instance, skill gap. So when I say skill gap, it's not just on the technology side. For SupTech solutions, you need a blend of domain knowledge on supervision, along with technology and along with statistical modeling. So that's a very unique mix. It's not very easy to acquire those skill sets. So we tried the buy, sometimes we tried the build, and eventually we ended up as others have with a hybrid. So some of the solutions we bought as a platform and then we build on them. Some of the solutions we build ground up, and some of the solutions we decided let's have a consultative approach with some other central banks or with some other consultants in the field and try and build some kind of a model first, do a POC, do a proof of concept, that is, and then take it forward. So the approach has been slow and steady, all driven by the strategy which we built. So it was more of a top-down strategy rather than let's do this, let's try something in a sandbox, let's do a POC. That was the initial period, but then we quickly discarded and adopted this very structured strategy, and it worked really well for us.
Thank you so much, Vijay. Lucero, may I invite you to share some of the work that you're doing with the superintendents in Peru? You are currently developing a SupTech strategy, if I'm not wrong. So I would love to hear from you about these insights and the work that you're doing.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Buenos días a todos desde Lima, Peru. Well, about the experience of the SBS from Peru, I have to say that there are different areas or departments working on some SupTech efforts. I belong to the risk management area, but there are also teams from the banking supervision, the insurance supervision, the private pension funds administrator supervision, also the market conduct supervision as well, with different efforts and different projects regarding SupTech. The strategic planning department, they formed and they lead this working group. All of the areas have representatives there in this working group. And we have been studying and we did a diagnostic. Also, we have some meetings with Cambridge SupTech Lab to get their insights. We started to identify which are the pain points that we are facing. And this is something important that I would like to highlight, that when we talk about the pain points, we're not only focused on technology. We also try to identify the pain points in the process, in the data, and in the human resources, and also our culture too. Because and I really appreciate that this is one of the inputs from the SupTech report of 2024, that there is an important change in the mindset when we talk about SupTech. And I think that for a strategic level, it's also important to know that when we talk about the SupTech strategy or when we talk about the efforts, we shouldn't only focus on technology or investing in technology. Technology is pretty important, but also the process is relevant too, because how are you going to show the results of all of the investments that you did implementing a SupTech solution if you don't have clarity about the process that you want to work on, and also how you are going to measure the success of the tool in terms of how the process was improved. So those were parts of the discussions that we had in the in the working group when we did the diagnostic. And then we trying to identify some action lines that can give us like the framework about the different solutions that we need to address. It's evident that we also need to work on, as part of the strategy, that we need to work on the culture too, because we need to have the sponsorship from the top level of the SBS. The sponsorship, not only in the terms of the resources, the sponsorship also when we talk about the strategic priorities of the SBS, that they can include also this need to focus on improving the efficiency of our supervisory processes. The other thing is also about the capacities that we need to gain, because nowadays we're supervisors working on SupTech, but our daily activities to go to do the inspection, to work on the offsite, but at the same time, we are trying to implement proof of concepts. We are working on the design, the experimentation. For some projects, we have funding of the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, and we are trying to make progress on the implementation with the technical assistance of a vendor. And also we are trying to take some courses, courses regarding artificial intelligence, other kind of courses, maybe more for end users, tools oriented to end users, because also not all of the problems that we face need to have like a complete development. They can also be solved with just using a tool that can be friendly for a supervisor. Mm-hmm. So we try to address that as well. And regarding the process, when you start to implement the SupTech, and that's part of the experience that we are also facing, the first part is the analysis. You cannot avoid that. And in the analysis, we started designing the workflow of the process, the assist, and the to-be. And that part is pretty relevant, because how you want to implement a tool if you don't have clarity about how your process is, about which are the pain points that your process is facing. And additionally, if you don't have clarity about how you want to improve the process. This part takes time. Sometimes we think that, hey, we really know at the beginning what we know, but when you start to work and you try to grasp which are my pain points, or how are the requirements, and how I want my process to be, is when you face that, hey, I really need to think more about it. I need to take time on this. And also some problems are that we really need to rethink about the process. It's just not about completing a gap. It's also rethinking, redesigning, and to think deeply about how the process should be. And when you don't have that clarity, you can invest money, you can spend time trying to implement the fanciest technology, but the technology cannot do it by itself. So those were part of the discussions that the working group had, and also these ideas were part of the different actions lines that we are trying to address as part of our plan. So now we are discussing about the different initiatives that we can execute regarding the process that were prioritized by the top level of the SPS.
Thank you so much, Lucero. Thank you, Vijay. I think it's very important to take these insights into the real case, living cases of different agencies as we go through the takeaways. I will pass it now to Maria-Elisa to cover the section around artificial intelligence, data, and digital readiness of the financial authorities.
Thank you, Simone. So before we analyze the data on technologies, let's quickly just review the SupTech generations framework. So this framework actually builds upon the work we conducted in collaboration with the Financial Stability Institute at the BIS about 6 years ago. And this framework is essential for understanding the progression towards more automated, sophisticated, and also integrated data-driven supervisory operation. It categorizes the evolution of SupTech solutions into 5 distinct generations, as you can see there, detailing their capabilities across 6 key management and processing dimensions. Next slide, please. So looking at which technologies are actually being deployed, the data reveals a critical gap. SupTech remains anchored in 1G and 2G legacy infrastructure despite rising 3G and 4G aspirations. And also there's a select uptake of 3G tools, but adoption remains uneven and 4G readiness is also still nascent. So the challenge here is clear that authorities recognize where they need to go, but operational reality remains firmly rooted in earlier technological generations. Next slide, please. So as we see here, we see that SupTech is still anchored in legacy infrastructure, with over 68% of authorities relying on manual submission, file-based storage, and static validation checks. And nearly 73% still use basic web portals or file servers as their main data interface. This means that most agencies remain in the digitization and early automation phase, so limiting the scalability, the interoperability, and data quality. So this foundational bottleneck is slowing the pace of transformation. And also another takeaway, we see that 3G tools are emerging, but adoption is still fragmented. Cloud computing, interactive dashboards, and also predictive analytics show signs of incremental progress. Cloud solutions are used by just 39.5%. Big data and predictive analytics still remain under 30%. So here, what this means is that agencies are taking tentative steps into the 3G space, moving from digitized data flows to intelligent data use, but without clear strategies and institutional support, then these deployments remain siloed or isolated. Another takeaway we can also get from this is the 4G capabilities, like the generative AI, are on the radar, but they are rarely operational. So only 19.4% are experimenting with generative AI. And advanced tools like prescriptive analytics, which is used by 13.7%, and real-time data ingestion by 11.3% of the authorities, these two are rare. And the implication of this is that the hype around generative AI is not yet matched by the readiness. So the technical, the legal, and the governance hurdles, including talent gaps as well as ethical safeguards, they're keeping most authorities in exploratory mode rather than the implementation. So we know which technologies financial authorities currently use, but what about the technologies and tools that they want? So there's a clear aspiration. If you see from the chart, there's a clear aspiration to evolve from the early generation tools to more advanced technologies. So today's existing SupTech solutions, they're primarily focusing on data management and descriptive analytics. However, tomorrow's desired solutions, such as predictive and prescriptive analytics, they increasingly focus on insights. This shift highlights the gap between the current capabilities and also future goals, and the continued presence of earlier generational tools underscores the incremental evolution needed to achieve comprehensive 4G adoption. So this incremental evolution is reflecting that varying levels of funding, digital maturity, and institutional capacity across the supervisory entities exist. So it suggests a cautious approach to ensuring compliance and privacy as agencies modernize their processes. Next slide, please. So the cloud has become very important. So cloud native solutions, they enable SupTech tools by providing scalable, cost-effective resources, faster updates, and also improved data security. However, they face security, their main drivers, security, privacy regulations, service suitability and cost are the main drivers of cloud decisions. However, they face performance and reliability concerns. So the types of cloud that agencies have adopted, when you look at that, we see that private clouds are the preferred cloud computing and storage model, which reflects a priority for control and security among agencies. And also, just despite the many advantages that cloud computing services have, the shift to the cloud infrastructure is introducing several complexities that make financial supervisors to be very cautious about adopting cloud service providers. So the biggest challenges include the security and data protection, integration with legacy systems, as well as skills gaps and also organizational change. Next slide, please. So authorities actually showing rising interest in AI technologies. So when we are now looking at AI, because this is very, very critical lately. So authorities show rising interest in AI technologies, but few feel institutionally ready. So most remain in the research or the pilots, testing, summarization, complaints analysis, and risk flagging. So generative AI experimentation doubled from 2023 to 2024, yet adoption is just at 19%. So AI maturity is it's diverging sharply. When it comes to the economic segmentation, its AI maturity is diverging very sharply, with advanced economies leading in pilots and deployment, while the emerging markets remain in the early exploration stages. So regarding one of the most discussed current technologies, how we want to see how is the implementation of AI going. So authorities are increasingly experimenting with AI-enabled tools and technologies, with 60% of the agencies exploring and piloting AI to enhance supervisory processes. So breaking this down, currently that 3.3% of the agencies are in initial exploration and research phase of AI adoption, while 29.8% have yet to incorporate AI into their supervisory framework. So indicating a cautious and exploratory approach. So diving deeper into the, I think that's already done. Next slide, please. So So AI readiness actually requires stronger governance and data practices, and authorities have shifted focus to data protection and governance in 2024, and they're calling for supervisory specific frameworks and auditability tools. So fragmented data, legacy processes, and also unclear rules, they keep undermining the confidence in AI adoption, responsible AI adoption, risking trust and also scalability. I think I'll pass it now to Simone to be able to address the rest of the section.
Thank you, Maria-Lisa. Thank you so much. So, as we said before, there are some challenges that really persist overall in the adoption of SupTech and are particularly evident when we go to the adoption and deployment of artificial intelligence. And with artificial intelligence, we know it's a broad term that includes so many different technologies and models and so forth and so on. But like, if we group these, we see really that one of the main challenges and concern is the lack of quality of the data. And so this really points to the need for better data governance, for taking care of data preparation. And what we've seen also sometimes is anecdotally, agencies testing, pioneering some AI-powered solutions, and then realizing because of those pilots for the need to do some background work, and so to go back and work on this readiness, and also challenges, of course, the integration with legacy processes, systems, and workflows, as well as, and it's important, and I think really good that agencies are highlighting this, the need for data protection, privacy, and security measures to be in place, as well as for ethical frameworks to be developed. I think it's also very meaningful to read that one of the challenges is that also comes across some of the conversation that we have in some of the working groups and courses. One of the challenges is that there are many frameworks for the ethical adoption of AI that have been released at international level, regional level, but there is nothing that is really fit and specific for the deployment of AI within financial authorities, and that's something that we see there is quite some demand. Going to the next slide. So, okay, we got to there. So maybe before we go to the review of the conclusion, sorry for that, we take another pause and we go back to Lucero and to Vijay to ask about the experience of the SBS with the deployment of these new technologies, the adoption of cloud, the adoption of AI, and what has been your pathway. One of the questions I have is whether you have, for example, done first a strategy, or you have also worked on some experiments working with AI to then go back to the strategic frameworks and road mapping. And also if you can relate to some of the challenges that these 139 authorities have flagged in terms of the data quality, the ethical frameworks, and so forth and so on. Lucero, maybe we start with you and then we go to Vijay. Thank you.
Okay, well, this is an incredible, but at the same time, I can tell that it's an amazing journey for us. The superintendency nowadays, we don't have, we haven't adopted a cloud platform, but if you want to take the decision, because it's a considerable investment, first you need to show with some use cases that work, what is the benefits that adopting cloud can provide to an organization. We started, I talk about the risk management and supervision area. We started with a proof of concept to analyze the warranties if they meet the regulation or not. This is a specific use case. This is based on an experience that we as supervisor faced when we went on an on-site inspection. And for that, we just defined a small budget because also we didn't have certainty about the success of the proof of concept. And also we look for the funding of a third party too. And we contacted different cloud platforms and we presented to them the idea, what we were trying to achieve, and also to get the insights from them if our use case was something feasible to do with the kind of the models or the analysis services that they have in the platform. We have this different conversation, and then one of them said, hey, I can show you that what you want to implement is feasible. And that allowed us to have like a result, maybe not complete result, but something that can give us an insight that, hey, this can work. We can take the next step. And then we started to do the implementation, the design first. But when we were working on the design, and we had different meetings with different authorities, and I really appreciate the time of the European Central Bank and also the time of the team of the DNB and Cambridge SupTech Lab who had these meetings with us. The insights that we got is that it's not a good idea if you start to implement isolated applications. So the idea that came to our mind was to design an integrated platform that can host different supervisory assistants. And one supervisory assistant that we started with was the analysis of warranties. And that's how our project really started. We are working now on the implementation. We're using generative AI because our use case needs to extract data from documents, many documents. They can have different number of pages. You don't know exactly where the data is in the documents because they are not standardized. Each company can send the documents in the way that they want to send the test. I mean, they decide how they are going to organize all of the content in a document. We don't have a rule for that. That was one of the challenges that we faced because you don't have like a structure and you say, and you can tell the tool, you should extract this data from the third line or the fourth line. Based on that data that we extracted, we apply some rules based on the regulation, and then at the end, we get an insight of the funding. But the funding needs to be written in following the guidelines that we have here in the SBS. This experience gave us many lessons learned, not only about the use of generative AI and the different models that can exist and the benefits that they have, but additionally, it made more evident for us how important is that we also need to gain capabilities to understand more in a deeply context how the artificial intelligence works. And additionally, we also had to invest time on a study about the security controls at the same time. And we worked also on some guidelines about what security controls that we need, not only at the level of the cloud platform, like how to filter the IPs, but also how to, the security controls that your platform needs to at the same time. For example, it needs to be integrated with the Active Directory of the organization, needs to have some control access management, needs to have a module for all of the parameters that you need for your tool. So many things came in that were appearing while we were advancing. And those are important tasks that you really need to focus on, that you really need to work on when you are implementing this type of technologies. The security, the confidentiality of your information, also how to be sure that you are selecting the best model for your use case or for the type of document or data that you are analyzing. And also to know how to budget at the same time, because when you use a cloud service, everything adds to the cost, and you need to be efficient for that too. And additionally, about the ethics at the same time. In the superintendency, there is in the SBS, there is the innovation department. They did a working group in artificial intelligence, and as part of that working group, we are working on an AI policy. We are studying the different policies or frameworks that other financial authorities, academy has issued about different principles that we need to address when we decide to work in artificial intelligence. We are in that work right now, but also in the proof of concepts and the experimentations, the supervisors know about the importance to be vigilant about the confidentiality, to be vigilant about the data quality, the security, and also how to use the resources efficiently, but at the same time about the human supervision in these tools. So the idea that behind all of these tools is not that they are going to work independently. No, they shouldn't replace the work of the supervisors. They are meant to be a help for us. They should provide the insights, but at the end, the supervisor is responsible to complete the analysis and to provide a conclusion. The tool can provide an insight about the finding, but the supervisor needs to be there reviewing the sources and verifying if the tool is giving a proper result.
Thank you so much, Lucero, for sharing these reflections and this very rich experience that you're maturing with the superintendents of Peru. Really appreciated. Vijay, turning to you. What's the experience of RBI? Do you face the same challenges that Lucero mentioned, and are you following a similar pathway?
We did face some of these challenges, but what we did was we did a lot of brainstorming, and these challenges became evident to us during that process. So we built a strategy to overcome these challenges. For instance, let me elucidate. For instance, the first challenge which everybody faces is poor data quality, or the depth of the data. So the first thing we did was, let's build an index so that we can measure the data quality, because and we need to measure in all its dimensions. So its availability on time, the precision of the data, the completeness of the data, and the sustenance of that data quality over time needs to be at an acceptable level. So we build a data quality index. We did it for all the data that we get from all the banks, which was possibly going to be used in our AI models. And we said that first upfront to the board, and the board approved, and we've started publishing it, in fact, using it as one of the pillar 3 techniques to push the market into supplying us with higher quality data. So that was the first strategy. On the second strategy, in terms of integration, what we did was all the use cases that we had initially brainstormed, around 9 of them, we got priorities from everybody, including the on-site supervisors. And we said, what's more important to you and what's doable and achievable, we'll prioritize. And we set about the task of delivering those use cases using some of these techniques. So we used, in fact, we used a lot of machine learning in that. We used a lot of NLP in that, and we had to use supervised machine learning. So while the use case remained intact, the techniques to achieve the results kept on changing based upon the results that we got from applying those techniques. But nevertheless, we never gave up that objective. So in terms of integration, we ensured a buy-in from the top and the line level supervisors, so that everybody kind of understands what we are trying to do, why we are trying to do, and what should they expect from this model. So there are models which give intermediate results, and we say this is what you'll get, and thereafter you have to work ahead with this. So you may get a an output which would be somewhat more summarizable by using a supervisory judgment. So we'll give you that intermediate output. In certain cases, we give the final output. In certain cases, we say this is the output and this is how you interpret it. So the interpretation and the output itself, the metrics, the thresholds, everything was decided during the use case design. And that design was a document, a proper documentation process, even before we went about building that model. It was a very rigorous process, and that's how we approached it. The challenges in terms of data privacy, data security, in terms of adoption of cloud technologies that have remained with us. So the strategy there was that let us procure compute within the Department of Supervision using IT support, and let's put it on premises so that we don't have to upload anything to a cloud. Let's run it for a couple of years here. When we hit the threshold of having utilized our GPUs, CPUs to the maximum, then we can make a use case. And in fact, there is already a strategy now in motion to have an AI cloud for the entire bank, wherein we would also get space to run our use cases. So it was a kind of parallel strategy. So that strategy worked hand in hand about the infrastructure, the cloud compute, and then there was another part of the strategy, which was training and capacity building. So we have a college of supervisors, and it was given specific course modules to be run. So whether it is on Python, whether it is on machine learning techniques, random forest, or whether it's on any other techniques which are there, how to run those techniques using Python codes, how to interpret the outputs, what are the challenges, how do you check for the accuracy. Those kind of trainings went around for the line supervisors. So we kind of faced the same challenges, but we used strategy first to ensure that none of these challenges actually stops us from reaching to a certain level of adoption. So that's the way we did.
Thank you both so much. It's interesting to see how differently you're approaching these, of course, depending also on the different resources and where you're at in your journey, and some of the approaches that you're taking to go through this journey. So I would like to invite anyone who has questions to please share them in the chat. We're going to have a few minutes to answer them. Vijay, Lucero, one is from Ahmad. Somehow I think you have already covered, but I don't know if you have anything more specific to add. And the question is, with data quality, integration, and privacy as the key challenges, what first step should really a supervisor take to ensure the effective and transparent AI adoption in SupTech? I think it's wonderful, Vijay, what you shared about, for example, the data quality index, but is there anything even more specific regarding the goal of deploying AI, and what's the first step that an agency can take? Either of you, please take it.
I'll have a shot at this. What I feel is that the first step would always be to have a clear use case and a strategy, because this is a very elaborate work. You require resources of all kinds. You require budget, you require manpower, you require capable, So the first steps would always be to have a strategy, and that strategy should have the components that you've very, very succinctly listed out. It should have all those components so that nothing stands in your way. Because the moment you take one step, you would be hit by the challenges that you have yourself mentioned. So it's better to have a unified strategy which covers all these aspects. And that should be our first step, to have a strategy, in fact.
Thank you. Lucero, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, something that I will add is to also think of the traceability and auditability. Even though now we don't have already a policy that has been already issued, but one thing that we try to focus on when we are implementing these projects, because we are still doing it, this is a learning experience for us, is we are trying to document everything, even the QA test that we do. We try to document it, the different scenarios, the different documents that we work on. Also, our partner as part of the technical assistance, also is documenting the models, the different tests that they had. They have also responsible for the QA too. We review each iteration of the architecture that we are using as part of the tool that we are implementing. And we also put ourselves in the situation that what will happen or how we are going to answer if an auditor or something that doesn't belong to the team will come and will ask us about how this works, why this model, why this design, why this architecture. So the SBS team and the team of the vendor should be able to provide all of those answers, but not only as a verbal explanation. I also require to have documentation of all of the project and all of the different decisions that we are making as part of the implementation.
Thank you so much, Lucero. Appreciate it. So we are coming to the conclusion in 3 minutes, and there are a couple of things I would like to cover before we close this session. Some of you have been asking about the 2025 survey. So we already launched the 2025 survey. The deadline for the submissions is October 15. Everything we are sharing, it's because there are some people that are willing to take the time to answer the survey and to share the data. So the insights are only as rich as the submissions from the agencies are. So we really, really, really appreciate the effort to take the time to submit these answers by mid-October, so that we can have a rich report also for 2025. And it's gonna be there's gonna be some additional layers that we added. One is about, for example, the supervision of open finance and open banking. Another one is around the supervision of the AI deployment by financial firms. And as I mentioned before, also, we're trying to really analyze better what is the sequencing between strategic approaches and operationalization and governance models to be deployed. So in order to access the survey this year, it's much easier. If you log in into the diagnostic and readiness tool, here is the website URL, but also you can write to us at State of SupTech at jbs.cam.ac.uk. We will help you to have access to the survey. And the survey is collaborative. So even if one person starts from an agency, you can collaborate, you can tag your colleagues where there are areas where someone else you think is more suited to answer. Of course, all the responses remain confidential. For the survey, not single authority is put under the spot, as you have seen through the presentation today and through the survey. We really take seriously the confidentiality of these answers. There are a couple of important incentives that we created this year to hopefully increase the number of answers that we receive. 139 is already a great number, but again, like more agencies submit information, the richer is the insight that we can derive from the analysis. So one is that for the person submitting for the agency, there is a discount on any executive education courses offered by the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance. And the other one, which I think is really important based on my experience with surveys of this kind, is that starting on from this year, you will be able to log into our digital platform and you will see how your agency has been answering the different questions in the survey compared to the global answers, to the regional answers, and some of your peers. For example, you can compare with other securities commissions or with other central banks. So this is very important, I think, because we ask for data and we give back the report, but now we're able to give back something more, which is really awfully important and foundational for you to measure your pathway, your performance, your improvement compared to the other hundreds of agencies that are answering to the survey. And of course, even with this benchmarking tool, you will be the only one able to see answers from your agency. You need an account from your agency to be able to see individual answers. So this is part of the benchmarking tool is part of something very important that our team is working on right now. Next. And that's the deployment of GovSpace. So we are actively working on launching as an alpha next week, and then in beta in December, GovSpace. GovSpace is a new platform that assists financial authorities and other public agencies in the digital transformation journey. It's almost a digital twin for digital transformation, so that you can do diagnostic, use the data gym, use other tools, as well as connect with peers and learn from each other and share insights in a protected environment, creating your own spaces, your own working groups, communities of practice, depending on what you need, and sharing documents and so forth. This really comes from a meeting that we had with 50 supervisors last year in December during SupTech Week. Vijay was there, and there was this strong demand for a collaboration tool to be able to share assets, opinion, lessons, code, data, and so forth and so on. And so GovSpace hopefully will serve this demand and further contribute to accelerate the digital transformation of financial supervision. A couple more reminders. One is that we have the practical data science course. I saw some questions in the chat around what type of skills are needed. With the practical data science course, we do support in the development of those skill sets within the agencies and outside the agencies. That's starting on October 6th. And then SupTech Week for the third consecutive year in collaboration with the World Economic Forum, where we will have our event in an hybrid form, both online and in person here in New York, the week of December 8th. So thank you all for being with us for this hour and 15 minutes. Vijay Lucero, thank you so much for really participating and being willing to share your expertise, your journey. I think that's really where we see all these insights, all these numbers coming to life. It's where we touch upon the experience of the agencies, and so the understanding more from your work, it's really critical, I think, for all of us. Again, thanks to the partners who helped us to bring the State of SupTech Report 2024 to life, and thanks to all the co-authors. That's it for today. Looking forward to reconnecting soon. Thank you.